I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown, an episode where we're going to talk about the Best Picture category and how the most recent PGA, DGA, and Critics' Choice Awards will influence our Oscars. Safe to say, things have changed overnight, and we have a new frontrunner to win for Best Picture, so I'm going to break that down all in this video. But if you guys are new to the series, welcome. We've been predicting the Oscars now this is our 9th season, over 8.5 years. So welcome to join along here in the final stretch as to predicting what's going to win for Best Picture. Of course, we also were predicting the nominations, and now are just trying to keep up with some of these different award shows and try to have a little bit of an understanding as to how this will affect certain things going into one of the most crazy Oscar seasons I've seen. Been doing this now for a long time, and this is definitely up there with years like 2015 or 2019, years that I've been covered. And actually 2019 was the year that popped up most to me when trying to compare this year to previous years, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this video is coming out to you a little bit earlier. Usually release on Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern time, but figured, we've got the results here on a Sunday morning, so Super Bowl Sunday, let's put out a video. And we're going to be continuing to upload these videos, do BAFTAs a week from today. But what I want to mention here up top is that I'm going to be doing my award show called The Connors, where I give my own favorites of the year, favorite movies, favorite performances. That's going to come probably on Thursday of this week, so keep an eye out for that and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss that video. But without further ado, let's jump into things. Essentially how I'm going to break down this video is first talk about kind of PGA, then DJ, and then Critics' Choice Awards, and just trying to figure out, after these results, where do we stand? Where does the race stand? So starting off with a PGA, Anora ended up winning PGA, which was absolutely huge for its chances. Just last week, we kind of did a breakdown of the Best Picture category, and I mentioned how I thought Anora and Conclave were my two kind of dark horses to win for Best Picture, because they were both the frontrunners to win in their respective screenplay categories. So the fact that Anora won here for PGA, I think is really big. It shows that there's an overall support for the movie. Even at winning at Critics' Choice, which we'll talk about later, I think is a good sign of support that people may not like the individual pieces of the movie, but they like the movie as a whole. It's also important to note that the PGA, the Producers Guild, they use a preferential ballot wherein they rank the top 10 choices, and the PGA lineup was pretty much the Oscars lineup, aside from a couple of movies. So they were very indicative, I think, of what the Oscars will eventually do because of the voting system that they use. They use the exact same preferential ballot ranking system that the Oscars use. So it gives us an understanding of what the general consensus was. And I mentioned this really as someone who hasn't taken Anora out of my potential Best Picture winners like a lot of people have, that it has the kind of general support that no one really hated the movie. It was going to win a screenplay prize. We know that 10 out of the last 10 winners, 8 out of the last 10 Best Picture winners also won a screenplay prize. So winning screenplay is really big. It really gives you a strong chance. And now the path is there. Now we see that the spotlight path is there in 2015. Is there a possibility where Anora doesn't win? Yes. I mean, is Anora right now a lock to win for Best Picture? No. But after its DGA win, which was a big pickup, even its odd kind of sole Critics' Choice win, I think is kind of a big deal. The fact that it just won Best Picture kind of indicated that there is just general support for the movie. And then also it winning here at PGA, the most important win, I think, of the weekend, showcases just an overall amount of support for the movie, and I think really giving it kind of a 2019 Parasite type of a feel. So speaking about that, let's go into the DGA, in which Sean Baker won for DGA. And what does this mean? Does this mean Sean Baker is the frontrunner to win? Yes. Is he going to win? Not necessarily. Oddly enough, I think Anora has a large variance of what could happen. I still think there's a possibility where the Academy, for some reason, doesn't really connect with Anora itself, and it underperforms on Oscar night. And there's actually a scenario where I think either Anora wins Best Picture or it wins nothing. Those are kind of maybe the top two scenarios I see. Because it could win director, picture, editing, screenplay, or it could win, it doesn't win screenplay early on in the night, and that goes to the substance, and then the Brutalist goes editing, and then Brady wins for directing, and then maybe Brutalist wins for picture. There is kind of a high variance in terms of how I think Anora is going to kind of fall, how things are going to fall, but based on DGA and PGA, there is, I think, a strong sign of support right now for Baker after winning those two awards, which would help, of course, its chances to win for Best Picture. And I mentioned earlier, this is a 2019 type of a year, and I think that can be helpful in making your own predictions. Because if you remember in 2019, there wasn't a clear frontrunner. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood won at the Critics' Choice Awards. Then 1917 won PGA and was kind of the last-minute directorial-driven surprise. But then on Oscars night, Bong Joon-ho swept director, screenplay, and picture. And that was also a Palme d'Or winner, just like Anora was. And it was also distributed by Neon, just like Anora is. So clearly kind of they're trying to follow that same path. And they may get away with it, and they may do that, particularly if Anora ends up winning SAG Ensemble, which it could. It's absolutely got a strong ensemble of actors. And then next thing you know, it's got DGA, PGA, and SAG, and it's a clear frontrunner to win. We're not at that stage right now, so keep that in mind. Now, the one thing that is in the back of my mind is how much will they really love Sean Baker? Some years we go and we overthink categories and we say, well, are they going to really give Sean Baker 4 Oscars? Because that's what's going to happen if he wins picture, editing, screenplay, directing. Sean Baker's going to win 4 Oscars of the 4 that he's nominated for. But I don't think really most Oscar voters don't consider that always. Most of the time, you think of Birdman, Alejandro Inarritu, we thought it was going to go to, 1 to Wes Anderson or 1 to Richard Linklater. And Inarritu won everything. He won directing, screenplay, picture. And the same thing with Bong Joon-ho that year. He won multiple categories. Even you could say Everything Everywhere All at Once of directing, screenplay, picture. Or Christopher Nolan last year. It happens more often than you think, where if they really like a movie, they're going to reward it in multiple categories. So you may hear some people go, and it is in the back of my mind too, are they really going to give Baker 4 Oscars? Well, if you believe in Anora, I think you almost have to predict that path. That's why I said there's a high variance. I think Anora wins picture, director, screenplay, probably editing too, or it wins none of those. There's kind of an either-or situation. I'd be surprised if it wins screenplay and then doesn't win picture, for example. But after this night, after winning directing, which was a huge surprise, I think a lot of people thought Brady Corbett was the frontrunner there. Maybe he's a little bit too young. Maybe Baker's a little bit more of an established director. But DGA pretty rarely gets it wrong. Although, funnily enough, in the Parasite year, they got it wrong. So it's not impossible, but DGA win gives you a huge likelihood of winning at the Oscars, and that's probably my prediction right now. Although I wouldn't be surprised at all if Brutalist does very well at BAFTA. The most important part I think you should take away from this video, though, is that you can, Conclave may win SAG Ensemble, and Brutalist may win at BAFTA, and we may go, oh, we have a race all of a sudden. And I think the most important reward shows have maybe already happened. Number one being PGA. That's huge. And then the fact that Baker beat out Corbett for the Brutalist in DGA is huge, when Corbett was the clear frontrunner to win in that category. And even the fact that you could say Brady Corbett didn't sweep and win that Critics' Choice Award for Best Director, and they went with John M. Chu, just indicates maybe an overall lack of support for him, and maybe that movie's a little bit more divisive than we think. So is Anora the frontrunner to win for Best Picture right now? Absolutely. Overperformed with a huge win in DGA and won the most important industry group in the Producers Guild Awards. So right now, for sure, Anora's a frontrunner. Is it a lock to win? No. Just because of how confusing this award season has been, and because I still think there's an odd chance that, the directing isn't locked up and the screenplay prize isn't locked up, there could be a scenario where Anora not only doesn't win Best Picture, but doesn't win a single Oscar. That's kind of how crazy the race is right now, and it's something that we're very excited to see go forward. But if Anora wins, let's say at SAG Ensemble, it's pretty wrapped up. It's pretty much a lock, something that we'll be covering in the coming weeks. Now, just briefly talking about the Critics' Choice Awards, these aren't very relevant. The reason why we started with the PGA and DGA is because there are members of the Producers Guild and the Directors Guild who are also members of the Academy, so it's actual Academy member voters voting on awards, versus the Critics' Choice Awards. It's a bunch of critics, none of whom are in the Academy. But what it is notable is that it is a televised event. It is on E! Many of the celebrities were already there. So they, in particular for the acting races and sometimes the screenplay categories, allowing them to have a speech really matters. So let's just make sure we're clear on Critics' Choice. What doesn't matter? I don't care that challengers won for editing at Critics' Choice. I don't care any of the below the line stuff, because there's nothing really a big difference aside from Critics' Choice and any other critics group, except for the fact that Critics' Choice Awards televised their awards. So particularly because of the below-the-line categories in which people didn't really even give any speeches, there was no momentum to be gained. So really the only categories that I care about are, we'll call picture, acting, and then screenplay. And even the screenplay categories, who knows if that really matters. I will say I think the if we're going to take away certain things, we take away two things from the Critics' Choice Awards. The first one is that the 4 acting categories, I think, are pretty shored up. I think a lot of people, after seeing PGA win for Anora, they may go, is Mikey Madison going to win for Best Actress? Maybe, yeah, but that's not necessarily a guarantee. Michael Keaton in Birdman didn't win. Sally Hawkins in The Shape of Water, another Best Picture winner, didn't win. There's not always a guaranteed correlation between acting and the picture category, particularly in such a tight year like this one was. So I think our 4 acting categories are pretty set. Maybe a Chalamet wins at SAG and surprises. I think we're going to get a surprise in 1 out of the 4 categories at SAG, but I don't know if this is going to change entirely from the Oscars. I will say, though, that Kieran Culkin notably wasn't able to accept the award because he's doing rehearsals for a play, Glengarry and Ross, on Broadway. So he's not able to give a speech and he's not able to campaign, which does slightly hurt his chances just because he has been a very effective, charming campaigner on award season so far. That being said, I do think this was a kind of assurance of his win here. I think it's a type of performance that will do well at a real pain, and the fact that the Critics' Choices followed the Golden Globes for doesn't mean it's going to happen at the Oscars. I don't want to make that clear, but I thought they all gave at least solid speeches. No one gave a bad speech to tank their chances, and just gave them another opportunity to get up on stage, which is why we talked about last week, why it was between Demi Moore and Mikey Madison and not Demi Moore and Fernando Torres, because Demi Moore wins again, gets another speech, is able to, put her in the mind of voters that she's the front runner, she's supposed to win, this is her time, rather than Fernando Torres, who just won't have an opportunity again to speak in front of people and get some of that campaigning momentum. Just something that I wanted to note. The acting categories were pretty set before Critics' Choice, and Critics' Choice slightly kind of solidified them, although not guaranteed, but right now, if I were to bet, I would probably put those 4 in the categories with maybe a surprise at SAG, with then BAFTA going back to the traditional 4. And then also, I just want to briefly mention, in terms of screenplay category, I thought Coralie Farja had a great speech here for the screenplay category, and I wouldn't be stunned if The Substance won for screenplay, particularly now that we have a path in which Baker wins for director. So Baker could win for director, editing, picture. Would be an odd path, but is a path that's happened in the past. Most of the time it would be a screenplay, picture, directing, kind of a combination, but if they want to give The Substance something on top of Demi Moore, this could be an opportunity here if they want to reward specifically Coralie Farja for having a very unique, bold, interesting vision, give her the kind of originality factor in the screenplay category. And we've also seen past winners like Get Out in 2017 beat out The Shape of Water. So an original kind of a horror movie screenplay beating out the Best Picture winner. So there is some precedent for this to happen. I thought she made a very excellent speech that I saw a lot of. If anyone got a boost from Critics' Choice, I think in the screenplay category, it's most likely Coralie Farja for The Substance. So I wouldn't be shocked if that were to happen at the Oscars, which is why I kind of mentioned the high variance of Anora. And I don't think Anora is absolutely 100% guaranteed to win Best Screenplay, therefore it's going to win for Best Picture. I think there's still a 20%, 30% chance that The Substance wins for screenplay. So maybe keep an eye out on that category. But that's about it, guys. Those are some of my general thoughts on this crazy award season day. And like I said, stay tuned if you want to hear some of my personal favorite movies of the year and favorite performances and fun categories like Best Trailer and Best Moment in a Film. Stay tuned to Thursday for the 9th annual Connors. And then subscribe to the channel because probably next Monday we'll be talking about the BAFTAs, I think is next weekend, and then SAG. And then next thing you know, the Oscars are here. So it should be a lot of fun. But that's about it. Until next time, stay tuned.